The first set of problems is finding the angle. The second set of problems is finding a side. But the setup, it's only what you do in the calculator that's different. The setup is the same every time. So we're going to do number 1. The very first thing you should do, unless you have your notes open, always write SOHCAHTOA down so you can easily refer to it. This is my advice as somebody who is good at this stuff and has lots of experience with it. I'm telling you, I still write it down when I'm solving the problems because it really helps not get them mixed up. Because this is my jam. Geometry is my favorite. So I actually really enjoy this stuff, and I, teach it over and over again every period, every day, every year. So I'm good at it. And if I need to have a reminder, there's a good chance you probably do too, right? So always write it. And then what you do is you mark your angle that's being either asked for on the first set of problems or given to you on the second set of problems. So according to this angle, then you mark your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. I typically only mark the ones that they either give us or need us to find. So if I'm looking at this picture, here's my right angle, so this side over here, this is my hypotenuse. Okay, so according to this angle, is 12 opposite or adjacent? It's adjacent. It's next to it. So I don't even need this one over here. So which of our trig functions uses a and h? And that's where looking at this word comes in. Cosine. Because the a and the h are right here. So I know now that I need to use cosine. That's the setup part. So if I'm going to do cosine, remember, it always goes with the angle. It doesn't matter if this is the variable, the thing you're missing, or if this is a number that they've given you. It always goes with it.
If you're setting up a side, would you put cosine on the side?
Never. The sine, cosine, and tangent always go with the angle. So like on the first set of problems, that's what we're finding. So it's the theta or x or whatever you want to call it. But even if it was on one of the ones where they gave you, say that was 20 degrees, it would still be cosine of 20. The sine, cosine, and tangent always go with the angle. Okay? And then you set up your fraction. So remember, this tells you the order. So AH is adjacent over hypotenuse. So you put adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay? You got to make sure you do it in that order. Yes? Now, on the first set of problems, we're finding the angle. So this is the one. Remember how I said you can't separate these? You can't do any division or anything like that. But if you're looking for the angle, the thing you do in order to separate them is that inverse function. So technically you don't have to write it down, but I always write it when I'm showing. When you do the inverse, that switches places of these two things. So then the 12 over 13 goes with the cosine inverse, and the theta is now by itself. Okay? That's the part that you, at this point, you're going into the calculator. Now I'm going to remind you that the iPhone and the Android calculators were different. So this first one, this is for the directions I'm going over is for Android users because that's what I have. I don't have an iPhone. So when you type this in, you want to first make sure, sorry about the glare, that you're in degree mode. On an Android, it'll show, it's this button here, it changes between radian and degree, and it shows the degree at the top. Okay? Then to get to the cosine with the little -1, you have to hit inverse, and then you'll see it, cosine, -1, and then you put 12 over 13, or 12 divided by 13, in the parentheses, and hit enter. It says round to the nearest tenth. That's 1 decimal place. So our answer is 22.6. Okay, that's what theta is, 22.6 degrees. Now, for those of you that are iPhone users, a couple differences in the calculator. First and foremost, your degree and radian button is over here on the bottom. Does anybody have an iPhone they don't mind me putting up here on the screen? Will you pull up your calculator? It's a little bit easier if I show everybody. Alright, so the radian degree button is right down here. Now, if you hit it, radian shows up, but if you hit then it becomes the degree button. Degree goes away, so that's one difference. If you don't see radian, it's in degree mode. Okay. The second thing that's different is to get to your inverse. Instead of hitting INV for inverse, you have to hit the second button. Sorry, there's glare. I'm trying to keep it away. Okay, so then you can see your negative cosine. Now, the third and most important difference is on the iPhones, the number has to come before the trig function. So how on mine, I put cosine inverse and then I put 12 divided by 13. Here you have to do in parentheses, and it won't pop up parentheses, 12 divided by 13. Close your parentheses. That gives you a number, okay? Then you hit cosine inverse. I don't know why the iPhone did it backwards. Every other calculator is the trig function, then the number. You can definitely use one of those. And if you would like to, let me individually show you how to put it in degree mode. But yeah, if you have an iPhone and you feel like it's too hard and you're here in class, you know we have the calculators up here. Okay, thank you, Pace, for letting me use yours to show everybody. But you see, we did get the same answer. It's just the buttons were different. Okay. All right. What's another one y'all want to do? Sorry, I can't quite hear you. 12. Okay, sorry. Part 12. All right, so this one is, the setup is the same, but this time we're looking for the side. All right, but I'm still going to write SOHCAHTOA on here, just because it's always easier for me to see. All right, so then when you get to your triangle, the first thing you do is mark the angle that's being given. Okay, so according to that angle, is the x, is it adjacent or opposite? Yeah. In the 11, since it's across from the right angle, it's the hypotenuse. So this one happens to be A and H is cosine again. Okay? But like I said on the other problem, the angle goes with the trig function, so it's cosine 60. Okay? Equals, and then remember order, A over H. So x over 11. Okay. Now on this one, you're trying to find x, so you can do some math here without doing. You don't do the inverse ever if you're finding a side. You do the inverse always if you're finding an angle. Okay. So how do I break up my fraction to get x alone? What do I have to do to get rid of the division? Multiply. So if I multiply by 11 on this side to cancel these, I have to do it over here. Be careful, don't put it by the 60, because then you might be tempted, or even just accidentally multiply the 11 and the 60. It'll give you the wrong answer. So you type this into your calculator to get x. 11 cosine 60. Those iPhone users, you'll have to do 60, then cosine, then times 11. Like all separate steps. So the iPhone is just a little bit harder. But you will get the same answer. So we got 11 cosine 60. I got 5.5. Now, notice that one, for the first example that we've done, even including yesterday, did not give us a decimal. I mean, it did, but not like one of those repeating. There's a reason for that. Does anybody happen to know why? Did anybody notice something that was different about this problem? Or maybe I shouldn't say different, but familiar?
60, 90, 30.
Yeah. This is one of those times. Remember I said you absolutely have to round on trig unless you happen to have a 30, a 45, or a 60 degree angle. That's because we could have done this problem as a 30, 60, 90. Shouldn't this have been half of this? Yeah. But, I mean, we're practicing trig right now, but those are the only angles that that'll work for, to where you can use that other rule. Cody, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. What's next? Y'all want to do another one?
5.
5? Okay. 5 is on the first set of problems, so it is one where we're finding the angle. So this is the one where we will use inverse. Okay, so this is our angle. We mark it. What's the 14 get labeled?
Adjacent.
Adjacent. And what's the 7.7 get labeled? Opposite. So in this case, and the SOHCAHTOA is written on the other side, but looking at SOHCAHTOA, which one uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So we're going to use that one, and notice the opposite will be on top, then adjacent on bottom. So we're going to say tangent of theta equals opposite over adjacent. Okay. So remember, when you're finding the angle, that's where to switch places between these two numbers to get theta alone, you have to use that inverse. So it'll be like this. Okay, so for Android users, just type in like that. For iPhone users, you have to do the 7.7 divided by 14 first, hit enter, then hit tangent inverse. So we're going to do tangent inverse 7.7 divided by 14 because I'm an Android user. So I got 28.8 for theta. So if you're, again, an iPhone user, do the fraction first, 7.7 divided by 14, hit enter, get your decimal, and then hit tan inverse. You should get the same number. You just have to go about it in a different way. Do you have another one you have questions about? Or another example you want to do? I'm hoping the silence is because you've done the rest of them and you don't need more help. Not because you've done none of them and you don't know which one you need help on. If it happens to be the latter and you haven't done them and that's why you don't know which ones you need help with, maybe just pick some. 13. Okay, so 13 is on the second set of problems where we're finding the side. So remember, when you're finding the side, you will not use the inverse. You'll use the regular. So for 13, here's our angle. So is the x opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse?
Adjacent.
In the 4?
Opposite.
Opposite. So which one of these are we using? Tangent again. So tangent of 41 equals opposite over adjacent. Okay. So this is very similar to the other one we did, but this time the letter's on the bottom instead of the top. On the other one, it was like a letter divided by a number. So it saved us a step. On this one, you still do the same math. We still multiply by that bottom number. It's just that doesn't actually isolate the variable. Because if you look, the variable's now with the other side. But how do you get rid of the stuff that's being multiplied by a letter? You divide by it. So you're going to divide by the tangent of 41 on both sides. And that cancels here. So you've got x equals 4 divided by tangent of 41. Okay. Android users, this one's easier to type in. Just type in 4 divided by tangent 41. iPhone users, you got to do it a little longer. You have to do 4 divided by, then in parentheses do 41 tan, close parentheses, enter. So it's a lot more. But for Android, we're just going to type in 4 divided by tan, 41, close them, enter. So 4.6.
So it would be x equals 4.6.
Yeah, x equals 4.6. And that one didn't have any units, so we don't have to put a unit. For the record, if they had said feet or something, you would put that. Or if you're finding the angle, you always put the degree.